So now Jodie Kitching and Gemma Sanderson from Hayes Travel are going to take us through their journey. But we're actually going to start with Amy first, and then she's going to reintroduce them. Is that okay? Yeah. Great. So please welcome Amy onto the stage.
So anyone who knows me won't be surprised that I decided to talk first. So thank you everyone for coming today. I know I've found the session so far really, really useful, and I work in email day in, day out, so I hope you share the same sentiment from what we've heard about. So for those of you also who don't know me, my name's Amy Doyle, and I am the lead account manager at Communicator. So I've been working at Communicator for just over 15 months now, and have had the pleasure of working with some really great brands. Some of you are in the room now, so we have Warner's, FGH, Newcastle Systems Management. I'm looking for Gavin Macro, and of course Hayes Travel, who we are going to talk about today. So with me from Hayes Travel are Jodie Kitching, who's email marketing executive, and also Gemma Sanderson, who is the web product team leader. And today we're going to talk about how to succeed in result-driven email marketing in the face of adverse marketplaces. Now, for those of you who are local, you should all be familiar with who Hayes Travel are. They have a huge presence, even just on the streets with their shop places. They also have a huge amount of billboards in Newcastle Airport, some posters on the metro station. But perhaps if you are local, the way you'll know Hayes the most will be through their radio advertisement jingle that seems to play on the radio every hour, on the hour, constantly. Now, I'm not from the Northeast, as you can probably tell, but I didn't realise how popular this jingle actually was, and up until fairly recently, when I was on my way to a meeting with Gemma and Jodie and the team, and I got into a taxi, and I asked the taxi driver to take me to Hayes Travel. And no joke, he turned around and said to me, "Smile, Hayes Travel, nobody offers you more. I pet, yeah, I'll bring you, no problem." So, very, very popular. For those of you who aren't local, you will be really confused with why I just broke into song just there, but I promise it's a very, very good jingle. And I also promise that melodic outburst is the first and last of the rest of the presentation. So, that you don't go with just that jingle in your head, I'm now going to put some facts about Hayes on the screen. So who are Hayes Travel? Hayes Travel are the UK's largest independent travel agent. So being an independent travel agent means that they have access to a wide choice of tour operators and airlines. So they were first founded in 1980 by John Hayes himself, who opened this first shop in Seaham. Seaham is about 10 miles down the road. So from 1980, they have since built to have over 180 retail outlets across the country. So really, really great story for a local business. And within those 180 retail shops, they do have over 240 experienced independent travel agents. So these independent travel agents work together in what's called the Hayes Independence Travel Group, which is a consortium of independent travel agencies. Throughout everything they do, Hayes have 3 core values, and that is to provide good value, excellent customer service, and to provide high quality holidays for their customers. And they do that by offering 4 main product types. So package holidays, whether that be Europe or far away, city breaks, so whether you're going to Rome or Budapest or Prague for the weekend or midweek. They also offer a range of cruises, and their final thing is long haul, so whether that's in Asia or Australia or further afield. These main products are offered through 3 sales channels. So they have 2 offline, 1 online. The 2 offline will be their retail stores, but also their call centres, and then their online is just the Hayes Travel website. So historically, the split between offline and online has been 95% to 5%, which is, quite a disparity. But Hayes have both a want and desire and need to change that to be 85% offline and 15% online. So with this in mind, Jodie and Gemma have a lot of work to do in terms of making sure that their email marketing works to drive people to the website. So great story about Hayes. They've obviously been in business for over 30 years by now, but perhaps the last 2 years have been the most challenging, I think it's fair to say, just with everything that's going on in the marketplace. I'm just going to explain why. So behind me now on the screen is a direct quote from an article that came in The Guardian this year. So they are predicting that a third of travel agents could go out of business by 2021. So if you work in the travel industry, that is a terrifying prediction, but they give 3 main reasons for believing this to be the case. And it's also 3 obstacles that I know I come across nearly every day working with travel customers are facing the same type of problems. So they are mainly the competitor landscape, consumer confidence, and mailing list growth or a marketable database. So just to touch briefly on the competitor landscape, there has been an almost .com bubble-esque trend that we've seen in the travel industry, with various brands popping up online to become your go-to platform to research and book your holidays. So you have your booking.coms, your Trivagos, and your Airbnb. So they just get a lot more online presence than independent travel agents just could ever get. And hopefully to prove that prevalence, I'm going to steal Jeff's trick here and just ask you that by show of hands, how many of you guys have actually used one of these brands in the last 12? Yeah, okay. Fair enough, I'm going to say yes. The 2 girls at Hayes have their hands up as well. But by the same virtue, how many of you have used an independent travel agent in the last 12? So significantly less. Thanks for raising, Stuart. But what you can see there is that there's a huge amount of competition for Hayes to compete against. And these brands are all have an online presence. They don't have the same issues that a traditional brick and mortar business have. They can use all their resources to enhance online presence, to enhance the user experience, and to get the conversions. So really is something to be competing against. The next thing I'm just going to touch on is consumer confidence and probably lack thereof. So it's not a surprise to anyone in the room that the travel industry has been hit with some sad news over the last couple of years. So it started off in 2017, and I think we all remember waking up to hear Monarch had closed. I don't know if anyone was ever affected by Monarch, but what we saw was that at 4 a.m. the airline collapsed, and it was one of the biggest repatriation initiatives that they had to do to bring UK holidaymakers home. Unfortunately, that wasn't a one-off. What next happened was Thomas Cook, which was happened very recently, where it collapsed after the last-ditch rescue talks. So 2 very big events in the travel industry, 2 very negative events, and wherever there's negativity, you usually have the naysayers. And at the start of those naysayers is, of course, Mr. Michael O'Leary, CEO of Ryanair. So he constantly makes the papers with headlines such as rival budget airline Norwegian is doomed. He also predicts more than European airline collapses. So I feel like a lot of the low consumer confidence stems a lot from Michael O'Leary, so for that I can only apologise for my fellow countrymen. But since I've left the bar so low to talk about Michael O'Leary, I'm just going to say it, I'm going to talk about Brexit as well. So looking at Brexit, there's been such confusion over where we can go, how we can get there, do we go somewhere and not be able to get back to the UK? And the media is picking up on this, right? So you have how Brexit might affect your European travel plans. Brexit travel, are you covered if Brexit disrupts your holiday? New post-Brexit passport rule is already damaging UK tourism industry. And then the passport warning to holidaymakers travelling after Brexit. So all these headlines say the same type of tone, but when you actually look at the articles, they all say very, very different things. Does anyone here understand how Brexit would affect your travel to and from the UK? No, a lot of people. I have no idea. I don't know if I'm safe here. Who knows? I might have to go back home. But when we see that happening, we can't expect customers to part with their cash to get long-haul holidays, to get cruises. It's a big commitment for people to spend that much money on a holiday. And, you know, with this kind of lack in consumer confidence, how can we expect them to do so? We are well aware now of the psychological effects that media can have on a consumer database, and so we're seeing that now on email marketing trends. So these stats come from a recent report from Epilson, who have talked about their non-bounce rate, which is how they say deliverability rate, but also open rate and click rate, which are the 2 main stats that Hayes really care about. Now, this is just across the travel industry. You'll see this open rate is still at 23.4%, which is quite good. It's a good open rate, and click rate at 2.3. While these look promising, everything in pink actually indicates a percentage decrease of 5% or more from the last year. So you see that the travel industry in terms of email marketing is really being hit by this low confidence. What I've also done is looked at my travel customers to view their volume of inquiries versus bookings, and this is what that trend looks like across the board. So in the pinky reddy colour, you have your inquiries, and in your blue, you have your bookings, and this is based over a year to date. So we would always expect some disparity to be from inquiries and bookings. That's usually the norm. People research more than they actually convert to a purchase. But to see it by this amount is something we haven't seen really before. What's interesting is you have your usual spike of inquiries around the summertime, so when the school holidays are on, when you want to get away, but not the same level of bookings around that time. But there's a massive spike in bookings around the October time, and you'll remember we were planning to leave the UK, and then Boris said, no, we're waiting until January, and then all of a sudden people just booked. They decided to go for it. They realised that they were safe and they could actually come back to their homes. So seeing the level of inquiry, we know people are interested. They're just afraid to part for their cash, and rightly so. Final thing that we just want to touch on is list growth. So Hays won't be alone in the fact that GDPR had on a lot of brands. So before GDPR, Hays had 150,000 in terms of their marketable database. That's now down to 85,000. So you can see that's quite a loss of emails after GDPR. But what we also need to remember is in that 85,000, Hays has what we call the longer lifetime customers. So you will have people within there who have booked their cruise maybe for 20 months' time, or have booked their cruise for 18 months' time. So although they are technically marketable, they're not prospects. So sending them these emails about the offers really doesn't make that much a difference in terms of sales conversions. So it seems a little bit doom and gloom, but despite the industry that Hays are in, and despite all the stories, the last 5 years have actually been really, really good for Hays Travel. So it started off in 2013 when they acquired Bath Travel, which is the south of England's largest independent travel agency. So then further just wedding their position as the UK's largest independent travel agency. 2014 then, Hays Academy was launched, which was great. 2016, they got another inclusion in the Sunday Times 100 Best Companies to Work For. And at the same time, John Hays was awarded Freedom of City as Sunderland, which is a really, really big deal. In 2017, then, they had a turnover that reached 850 million. And around that time, there was a statement from John Hays that they were going for the billion mark, which they managed to achieve just last year, which I think itself just deserves a bit of a round of applause because that's amazing. And finally, some more good news for Hays. In 2019, they actually, I suppose 2019, just last month, they managed to acquire the entire retail portfolio of former Thomas Cook, so that's another 555 stores. But instead of just acquiring people, they also managed to offer new contracts to 2,000 Thomas Cook employees who have been made redundant, which obviously is great news for the Thomas Cook people because we know that a lot of people were affected. So as you can see, ever-growing company, ever-evolving marketplace. How do you maintain a focus on results-driven email marketing when there's a lot of things changing? Well, the answer to that is really back to basics and fundamentals of setting a clear objective and clear strategy. Hays Travel are really big fans of the sophistication scale, which is Communicator's framework for your guide on how to become more sophisticated in email marketing. When we first started working with Hays, they were at hit a Hopper level. Sorry, I hate to remind you of that. They were at hit a Hopper levels, but up until recently, they were kind of in this weird space of being between dispatchers and campaigners. So what that means for anyone who doesn't understand the sophistication scale, if you don't, by the way, please ask your account manager to explain it to you in greater detail. It's a really, really useful tool, especially as you come up to your 2020 planning. Stage 2, Hays were doing an awful lot of these steps, but two things that they weren't focused on are kind of closer to the bottom there, where we didn't have KPIs set for click rates, and that was something that we wanted to focus on. But we also didn't send multivariate dispatches regularly for subject line testing. So those were two things that Hays wanted to do to move fully out of stage 2 of dispatchers level and into stage 3 of campaigners. Now, Again, Hayes had an awful lot set up here. We had the integration, had a very reusable and complex data structure, but we weren't focusing on multivariate dispatches to test message content, and we also didn't have as much of a focus at looking at delivery rates and how that looks at different email clients and also on different ISPs. So with this in mind, we decided that we would do a three-pronged approach for objectives for 2019, and that was email design analysis and tweaks, subject line testing to improve open rate, and also how to introduce user-driven content into their wider newsletter. So I'm going to stop talking now and hand you over to Jodie and Gemma, who are going to explain more about these objectives.
Hi everyone. So as Amy's just mentioned there, we had 3 main objectives that we wanted to achieve at the beginning of 2019 for the year. So myself and Jodie are going to talk through 2 campaigns that were carried out to help us meet these objectives. The first objective I'm going to talk through, and then Jodie will talk through the second. So campaign 1, our objective was to create a new design of templates to be mobile optimised, as well as a more up-to-date look and feel. From the analytics that were looked at, we realised, like many other businesses, that the majority of our customers were open and buy on a mobile, which is why I want to focus on this. We looked at the Communicator platform just to view statistics on mobile versus desktop openers, as well as Google Analytics from a website like traffic point of view. So challenges and strategies, the main challenge that we came across was understanding the capabilities of the Communicator platform. So basically, this was both from a creative point of view and a marketing point of view. We had regular meetings with our in-house creative team to discuss the parts of the emails that wanted to change, to help them understand the platform and how to implement their designs in there with their capabilities. The main thing that we wanted to focus on changing was the header and the footer, and then the imagery within the email. I'll go on later to show you examples of what our old emails looked like versus our new ones, so you can see what's changed. So for testing, we tested by sending template designs internally to our work colleagues within the office. We've done this by looking at the optimisation going by the different devices, so example Android or iPhones, just to test to see if it looked okay. We also checked by looking at like Gmail applications against Outlook. So like the styling on Outlook is, as you probably already know, that it looks different on Outlook versus Gmail. We sent these tests round and then came to the conclusion of what would work better for each. So for the results, we analysed and looked through click-through rates and things like that across all of our emails since we made the change. Overall, we're seeing a 4% increase in reading duration time, 2% increase in clicks-throughs to offers, and then we're also seeing a 29% increase on the click-throughs on the social media icons in the footer since we made the change. Although these are not massive percentages, we were really happy with the improvements, as we know customers are engaging a lot more with our emails, and we're confident that they'll continue to do so. So here's the before and after that I mentioned that I was going to talk about earlier. So this is since before we made the change and then after we made the change. So the before example is an email that was sent back in February this year. This is like a standard template that we've used right from when we had the HTML designs to the drag and drop. We just carried the design over, it's very dated. As you can see, there's nothing really exciting about those offers. They're pretty standard, generic images. There's nothing like key cell meshes or anything like that on there. Obviously, clearly not mobile responsive. And the offers are smaller in comparison to the header. And the footer icons that link to social media, like hidden at the bottom, they're not very prominent. As you can see on this email on the right, this is one of our most recent emails incorporating a bonfire night theme. As you can see, the offer blocks are a lot more, it stopped scrolling, but they were a lot more inspiring. And each offer had its own image with a different theme, and they really stood out. And also, in this email, the offers are very, sorry, I've lost where I am. They're easier to digest because it's like one offer at a time. It's not like cramming loads of offers on one screen. And I think it would just encourage customers to click through more. I think with this email, because we've added like a black background and changed like the brand and colours of the email, it's kind of been a brave thing to do, moving away from our brand colours, etc. But customers won't forget what our colours and brand looks like, because once they click through to the website, they'll see those anyway. And also at the bottom, we've added a trust piece, book with confidence. So as Amy mentioned earlier, there's a lot of uncertainty in our industry. So I think it just gives the customer that bit extra reassurance that we're a brand they can trust. So all in all, I'm sure you will agree that the improvements have been worthwhile. So I'm just going to hand you over to Jodie now to talk about the second campaign.
Hello everyone. So I'm going to speak about the second objective, which is we want to focus on content-driven emails. The reason we want to focus on this is simply because we want to improve the engagement with our customers. Before this, our customers would only receive the weekly marketing email. It would have the same kind of design. So we want to try and stay away from this and show a different side to who His Travel is. So the strategy and challenge with this, so we were trying to figure out how best to integrate this with our social media channels, sorry, how to integrate this best with our social media channels. So we basically put together a content calendar of different days of the year, which focus on topical events, it focused on TV shows, things like that. So once we put this content calendar together, we basically put a focus group together, so we could get different opinions, different ideas from different people in different departments. So, for example, with our social media now, because we want to really integrate this with our emails and work alongside it, we now send a Destination of the Month email, which I'll speak about a bit later on, which focuses on a long-haul destination, and this also features a blog going into more detail with this destination. So we now post this blog across our social media channels just because we feel like that works quite well. As most of you know, social media is becoming a lot more popular, so this is really why we want to get ahead of the game and integrate it well with our emails. So the testing with this, it was quite similar to what Gemma mentioned. We basically had to sit with our in-house creative team and just kind of come up with a totally different design. So with our marketing emails, we kind of have an image and then a call to action, then an image, then a call to action. However, with this one, we wanted an image and then a bit more room for content, simply because we were trying to sell the destination in a different way without price points. So we tested this also across different devices. So we tested it across Android, we tested it across iPhone, and we also tested across Gmail and Outlook. So the results for this aren't necessarily statistics, just because this is something that's still quite new to us. The results for us are more comparing what we did last year to this year. So when we look at last year, we didn't send anything like this over to our customers. All they would expect from us is our usual marketing weekly emails. So all in all, we've seen a really good improvement with our engagement. So as you can see, on the left is one of our Game of Thrones emails that we sent. And for any of you that don't know, Game of Thrones is kind of a TV show. It was quite popular. And we focused on the destinations where is some of the most famous scenes. So you could do tours, you could kind of walk around where some of the settings are. So this is why we kind of focus on this to promote our email. And then for the Love Island one, The way that we did this, for any of you that don't know Love Island, it was based in a villa, and basically people just stayed in that villa for a couple of weeks, had the best time of their life, and then either won a prize money at the end. So what we did was we said villas we love in Mallorca, and then we picked really good imagery to try and sell the destination rather than a cheap price point, a good key seller message. So that's kind of the difference with these emails. When we did the timing for these emails for the Game of Thrones, we decided to time this in, I think it was around April, when it was the final series. I know we waited quite a while for it, so we felt like that this was going to be the buzz, and if you were anything like me, you were really, really excited for it. So this is why we found that this would be the best time to launch it. We had kind of a similar idea for the Love Island as well. So for the Love Island, we did this on the finale day, and we launched this around midday, just because we felt like there was a lot of buzz about it. Our office was constantly talking about who we wanted to win. So this is kind of the idea behind this. So this isn't necessarily something that we added in our 2 campaigns that we've spoke about today, but this is one of the 3 objectives that Amy had previously mentioned that we wanted to hit by the end of 2019. So basically what we did was we did 10 weeks of subject line testing. And what this was we tested the theme against the price point. We focused on long-haul destination, which is places like Asia, Australia, simply because we felt like we could have a lot better themes with it. There's a lot more things to talk about, so this is why we focus on this. As you can see, the North customers, 6 out of 10 of them weeks, the theme was opened over the price point. And in our South database, 7 out of 10 of the weeks was opened for the theme rather than the price point. Because we've never done anything like this, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if the price point would win or the theme would win. So this was quite interesting to us to see that our customers do want to see themes from us. And because of this, we've been able to put 6 weeks in place with our product team to discuss themes. So we can think of things that are selling really well, things that we want to focus on, different destinations. So it's helped us to be a lot more efficient with our emails and our subject lines. As most of you know, sometimes you just chuck a subject line together, you don't think about it. So for us, this was it was really, really helpful. Now going, so here's a snippet of some of our subject lines and how they show up in the inbox. So we've tried to use different emojis in this, just so that it's not just a general subject line, it's a bit more friendly. And this is kind of what we've started incorporating across our social media channels as well. And then I'm now going to pass you back on to Amy. Thank you.
So just to talk through some results that we've seen so far. So the girls talked about subject line testing and how we wanted to look into that. And then really the key metric we wanted to judge is the open rate. So looking at the difference in open rates for Hays, so they are in the pink colour. In 2018, they were at 17.5%, whereas year to date, they're now at 23.4%. So you'll see that's an increase about 6%. We do understand that GDPR also had a bit of effect on open rate. You know, you get less database, but you get more engaged people. So we know open rate would increase from that, but to go up 6 percentage points is really quite phenomenal. Those in grey are the industry average, so that's the Communicator industry average. So you'll see we're currently looking at 19.1% open rate. So Hays are ahead of the curve in terms of compared to the Communicator benchmark. The next thing we wanted to look at was click rate, and this is very much, as Jodie had mentioned, the user-driven content to see if that did actually impact in conversions and get people looking at the website more. And looking at click rate, again, the results are phenomenal. Last year, Hays were at 1.9%, and this year they're at 2.7%. So any of you who have done testing to try and increase click rate, you'll understand 1% is just something that you shout about. And again, they're ahead of the industry average, which is at 2.4%. Finally, we want to look at content bounce rate. So Gemma had talked about the design tweaks and the change to the email template that they did. This is mainly because Hays was seeing a relatively high content bounce rate, and obviously with a lower mailing list to target, we don't want any bounce rate that we can avoid. So looking at the content bounce rate, last year they're at 1.5%, and they've recently brought that down to 0.77%. Again, it's very new. This has only been implemented a couple of months, so the fact that they can bring it down by that much is quite something. We're still not at the industry average of 0.51%, but we're working away and we're going to get there. So all in all, it's a great place to leave 2019 and to look at what 2020 holds. So we've been a bit ahead of the curve and already have our objectives for 2020, which includes a focus on cruise holidays, also looking at promoting their in-house tour operator, and finally introducing Hayes Travel brand to the new customer base. So we mentioned before that Hayes Travel had acquired the retail stores of Thomas Cook, so with that brings a whole new customer base that may never have heard of Hayes, especially if they are down south or other areas where Hayes doesn't have as much prominence. So integral to that will obviously be tone of voice, doing that trust piece, because these are customers who are disgruntled, they've been let down by Thomas Cook, so how do we actually make them trust Hayes and, you know, make sure that they can book in confidence as per the email design. So we know that with the focus of increasing online sales channel, that email marketing has to play an integral part in achieving these objectives, and it will always remain a key way to communicate with the customers. So as well as looking at these objectives, we're making the jump and trying for stage 4 of the sophistication scale, which is automators. And what we're currently doing to look at that is map out how SMS might have a role in the customer journeys. We're also looking at defining the clear customer segments. You know, are there people who are only ever going to be interested in cruises and never city breaks, or how do we look at, you know, who our real segments are? We're also looking at automated life cycle campaigns. Again, those who know me know I love a post-it. So Hayes' wall right now is covered in post-its of all these life cycle journeys. And we're focusing on cruise just to make sure that we're capturing people who book 2 years in advance, 1 year in advance, 6 months in advance, just so they're all getting those standard informational emails about their ship, their pre-departure, their bon voyage emails, and just trying to tie that in nicely. What we're also looking at is to remain achieving above the benchmark, which is the last point, but we've also started introducing KPIs for inbox placement and mailing list engagement. We don't just want to send emails and get great open rates. We want to make sure that we're always maintaining that 90% mark in terms of inbox placement, because these guys have a lot of products to sell next year. So I think you'll agree 2019's been good, 2020 seems exciting, and we're really, really excited to work together just to keep them on this sophisticated email journey. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and open the floor to any questions.
So any questions for Amy, Jodie or Gemma? Yeah, please, at the back, first off. Wait for the mic, that'd be great.
I wasn't sure if I heard you correctly. 5% of the travel sales is online and 95% is offline?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That really surprises me, how the market must be different than in... So in the UK, people still go to shops to buy their package holidays?
Well, I think it's more so the tradition that Hayes Travel have. So Hayes Travel, obviously, been around since 1980, especially in the Northeast. People like to go in, talk to travel agents, try and get the upsell, I suppose, because there's only so much you can do online. Potentially, your flight times aren't perfect, or especially if you're based from Newcastle, a lot of times you have to do double flights to get out of the country, so you might have to fly to Heathrow first in order to get far away, Edinburgh. So sometimes it's just needing that conversation piece that I think a lot of people in the Northeast definitely find helpful.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if I was hearing it right, but
no, that's right.
Interesting change to try and get them to book online.
Yeah, we have our work cut out for us, that's for sure.
Obviously, some great work that you guys have been doing with the improvements in open rate and click rate, and particularly with the content bounces. But is there anything in particular with the design tweaks that you think's really boosted that?
I think obviously the header and footer, those changes have been a massive improvement, because especially for our icons for our social media channels, because our social media channels were social media in general is a massive part of our business at the moment. So to make those icons more prominent on our emails has been a massive help for us. So obviously, as I mentioned, there was like 29% increase in click-throughs to those. And then I think obviously the design of the offers has changed massively because they're just much more appealing. And obviously have more room within the space to add in like additional key seller messages and things like that. And they're just much more prominent. So yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I just want to add to that, just on the back of something that Jeff said. Also, before those images, they were all image. There was no text over image. It was all just an image block. So what those designs have changed is that you actually have the image over the text over the image. So again, it makes it easier for plain text, which helps with accessibility. We'll listen to Jeff's advice when looking into that.
I think your emails look really good, but I think it's quite brave to move away from your brand colours. Like, do you think that your customers have been quite receptive to that? Do you think was it a good choice?
Yeah, I think it just creates a bit more excitement with the differentiation of the emails. We're not going to change all of the emails like that. It'll only be like certain ones that have a theme. So just customers don't get bored thinking, oh, just a new design every week, new colours. We're still going to have our like standard branded ones, and then now and then just like, for example, the bonfire night one was just like an odd theme. So it's just now and then that will do that just to keep our customers on the toes a bit and keep that excitement there. Yeah.
That was a question.
I really liked the idea that you did with the Love Island theme, and I just wondered if you guys are doing any sort of like preference centre work in terms of who are your demographics. For example, someone like my grandparents' age wouldn't be watching Love Island, but if they received that email, would that really resonate with them? Or
do you know they don't watch Love Island?
Yeah, so we don't currently have a preference centre set up. However, we have got one ready kind of to launch, which I think will probably be 2020, the beginning of 2020. However, the content things are kind of, it's a new idea for us, so it's kind of just seeing if it works well, if it doesn't. And we've kind of just launched that. So we have several databases based on kind of what product you like. So if you like Benidorm, you're not really going to receive a $3,000 holiday. So we're just kind of launching it a different segmented data and just seeing what kind of does well. And I think once we get the preference centre up and running, that's when we'll be able to use it more efficiently.
I've got a question on that as well. I'm quite interested in the whole Love Island and Game of Thrones you used. Do you see that just as a tactical thing from time to time, or do you see that as a trend that you're going to more and more hang on to TV programmes and successful series and so on? Because there is a buzz about them. You know, I wouldn't admit to watching Love Island myself.
Yeah, as I say, I think now that we've launched the Destination Month and we've seen quite good results with that, I think the topical things are things that I quite like to enjoy, and I think when we put our focus group together, we realised that a lot of people would enjoy these kind of things, so that's something that we definitely want to continue doing. At the beginning, I think our turnaround time with our creative team was maybe a couple of months just because it was a new idea, we didn't have templates in place, but now that we do have templates in place, we could probably turn it around in a couple of weeks. So if someone comes to us with an idea or we have an idea, it's a lot quicker turnaround, so it's definitely something that we want to incorporate a lot more.
Yeah. On the grounds that it was successful, if I understood it correctly. So, yeah. Any other questions for Jodie, Gemma and Amy? In that case, thank you very much. Thank you.